Imagine a country where schools start closing, not because of budget cuts, not because of a disaster, but because there simply aren't enough children. Playgrounds become quieter every year, toy stores disappear, maternity wards shut down, and entire towns slowly begin to shrink. This sounds like a problem from the distant future, but it's already happening today in Japan, South Korea, Italy, Germany, China, different countries, different cultures, different governments, yet all facing the same problem. They're running out of babies, and governments are becoming increasingly worried. But why? To understand how serious this is, we have to look at the numbers. Demographers use a metric called the replacement rate. To keep a population stable without immigration, the average woman needs to have about 2.1 children over her lifetime. 2 to replace the parents, and a little extra to account for unexpected losses. But today, across the developed world, that number is crashing. In Europe, the average is around 1.5. In Japan, it's around 1.2. And then there is South Korea. South Korea currently holds the record for the lowest fertility rate in human history. It has dropped below 0.7. That means for every 100 grandparents in South Korea, there will soon be fewer than 10 grandchildren. It is a demographic, mathematical collapse, and it is happening in real time. The world already has more than 8 billion people. Why would a few fewer babies matter? And how can something as small as a newborn child affect the future of an entire country? Most people see a baby as a family member. Governments see something much larger: a future worker, a future taxpayer, a future engineer, a future doctor, a future teacher, a future entrepreneur. Every adult keeping society running starts life as a child. And that means every country depends on people who haven't grown up yet. Here's a strange way to think about it. A newborn baby doesn't look very important. It can't work. It can't pay taxes. It can't run a company. Yet every economy depends on millions of them. Because every worker starts as a baby. Every doctor starts as a baby. Every inventor starts as a baby. Every leader starts as a baby. A country is constantly borrowing workers from the future. Babies are where those future workers come from. Think of society as a giant machine. Workers keep it running. Governments fund it. Hospitals rely on it. Schools rely on it. Everything depends on enough people working. So what happens when fewer workers arrive? The machine begins to struggle. First, there are fewer children. Then there are fewer students. Then fewer university graduates. Then fewer workers entering the labor force. Businesses struggle to hire employees. Some jobs remain unfilled. Economic growth slows down. At the same time, people are living longer than ever before, which is wonderful news, but it also means more retirees and fewer workers supporting them. Suddenly, the numbers stop working. Imagine a town with 100 workers and 20 retirees. That works fairly well. Now imagine 50 workers and 60 retirees. Healthcare costs rise. Pension systems face pressure. Governments spend more money, while collecting less tax revenue. That's why birth rates matter. The effects take decades to appear, but once they do, entire countries feel them. So why aren't people simply having more children? The answer begins with one of the biggest economic changes in human history. For thousands of years, children were economic assets. On farms, they helped families work. They contributed to household survival. And later in life, they often cared for aging parents. Children were not only loved, they were also economically useful. Then the modern world changed everything. Today, children rarely contribute economically for many years. Instead, parents invest enormous amounts of resources into raising them. Housing, healthcare, education, childcare, transportation, activities. Children transformed from economic assets into economic investments. And that one change explains a surprising amount. Cities accelerated this transformation. Apartments became smaller. Housing became more expensive. Competition became more intense. Many adults spend years building financial stability before they feel ready to start a family. People marry later, have children later. Or sometimes not at all. There is another factor. Modern societies offer more choices than ever before. Education takes longer. Careers demand more time. People have more opportunities, more freedom, and more possible paths through life. These changes have brought enormous benefits, but they have also changed family patterns. Many people aren't delaying children because they dislike families. Many are delaying children because they feel unprepared. And sometimes that delay becomes permanent. If you are finding this useful, please give the video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more simple visual stories like this. It really helps me a lot, and I truly appreciate it. Alright, now let's get back to the story. But economics and expensive housing only tell half the story. There is another, more personal reason why birth rates are plummeting: the changing reality for women. In the modern world, women have higher levels of education and career opportunities than any generation before them. This is a massive victory for human rights. But culture has been slow to catch up with this economic reality. In many societies facing low birth rates, women are expected to work full-time corporate jobs, just like men. Yet, when they come home, the traditional expectation remains that they will also handle the majority of the housework, cooking, and childcare. Demographers call this the second shift. When faced with the pressure of perfecting a high-stress career while simultaneously managing a household alone, many women look at the equation and make a logical choice. They decide that having a child, or having a second child, is simply too heavy a burden to carry. At this point, you might have a simple solution in mind. Why not just pay people to have children? Many governments have tried exactly that. Cash bonuses, tax breaks, childcare subsidies. South Korea alone has spent over $200 billion trying to fix this problem over the past 15 years. And while these policies can help, the results are often limited. A cash bonus might help you buy a stroller, but it doesn't pay for 15 years of cram schools. It doesn't lower the rent on a larger apartment, and it doesn't change a demanding workplace culture. Because low birth rates are not caused by a single problem. They're caused by many forces working together: economics, housing, education, careers, culture, lifestyle expectations. And that makes the problem extremely difficult to solve. If a country can't produce enough babies, there is an alternative. Why not just import people? Why not rely on immigration? For countries like the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, immigration has been the secret weapon that has kept their populations and economies growing despite dropping birth rates. But immigration is a complicated bandage, not a permanent cure. First, it faces deep political and cultural resistance in many parts of the world. Countries like Japan and South Korea have highly homogeneous cultures where large-scale immigration is difficult to integrate smoothly. Second, immigration only works if there is a surplus of people elsewhere willing to move. But birth rates are now falling everywhere. Even in developing nations across Latin America and Asia, birth rates are dropping much faster than expected. Eventually, the global pool of potential immigrants will shrink. You cannot rely on borrowing workers from other countries forever, because those countries will soon need those workers to fix their own aging crises. And this is where the story becomes bigger than birth rates. The baby crisis is really a story about modern life. Work changed. Housing changed. Relationships changed. Education changed. Expectations changed. For most of history, people adapted life around children. Today, many people feel they must first perfect life before having children. A stable career, a stable income, a stable home, a stable relationship. And by the time those pieces finally come together, the opportunity may be smaller than expected. The real story isn't that people suddenly stopped wanting families. Many still do. The challenge is that modern life often makes those goals harder to reach. The countries struggling with low birth rates today may be showing us something much bigger. Not what happens when people disappear, but what happens when the next generation never arrives. The world is not running out of people, but many countries are running out of future workers, future doctors, future inventors, future teachers, future leaders. Every one of them begins life as a child. And as that next generation grows smaller, the effects will ripple through economies and societies for decades to come. The baby crisis isn't really about babies. It's about the future. And that future is already being shaped today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. It really helps me a lot.